Hi, thank you for joining us today for another segment in the EOY webinar series. My name is Amy Howell, and I am Assistant Professional Learning Consultant with North Carolina, and I'll be going over required state reports, some valuable auditing reports, as well as some other recommended final reports you may want to pull and keep in your EOY files. Hopefully, you've had a chance to watch the other EOY webinars in the series, as many of those tasks will need to have been completed prior to running some of these end-of-year reports. Let's go ahead and get into it. First, we're going to take a look at some state reports that have to be completed by end of year. For a complete list of all state reports and their due dates, please refer to the State Reporting Due Dates article in our NCSIS Knowledge Owl. It's linked here at the bottom of this slide under State Reporting Due Dates. To navigate to these reports in your Infinite Campus, you'll go to your Reports on the left side in your menu, and then to State Reports. Let's take a look at those. Okay, so if we are in our Infinite Campus instance here, we can go over to our main menu, and we'll go down here to Reports, and you'll notice we have North Carolina State Reporting all right here in this category. Okay, so our first one we're going to take a look at is PMR 9. This must be completed prior to ending enrollment. So before you end your enrollments, we need to have our PMR 9 completed. This needs to be done 10 days after the last day of school. Okay, we want to keep our kids in there so we can keep them a good count on them. All right, for any other information with your principal monthly report extract, there's a link for our Infinite Campus. Make sure you are in your 25-26 context as well. I know we've been doing some scheduling and moving back and forth, but for this PMR 9, of course, you need to be in your 25-26 context. Okay, next we have our CTE extract if you offer these programs in your school. Right, this will need to be reviewed prior to ending enrollments as well. Once you've completed all of the tasks associated with your CTE programs and updating those, your CTE staff should validate these reports, especially that concentrator status for all the students. Okay, the CTE extract needs to be completed by June 30th. The Alternative Learning Program at Schools extract. Okay, this is going to pull all your alternate learning programs in schools within July 1 and June 30th. Again, this needs to be extracted prior to ending your enrollments and is also due by June 30th. All right, our discipline report, we still have some work being done on that and how that's going to be reported. So if you'll just kind of review, come back to this slideshow at some point, and there'll be some communication come out about our discipline report. So right now, we don't have any information for you on this one. Okay, graduation data verification. Again, this is going to be a reviewed report that you'll need to do for your current seniors. Some of the audits we'll look at later on will show you even your other students, but this will kind of give you a review of your graduating seniors and our mid-year graduates as well. We need to make sure that this is reviewed for accuracy, and it's going to be due August 11th. All right, so now we're going to look at some of our data audits and validations, just so we can make sure that the information and the data that we're reporting is accurate. Hopefully, as you've been going through these webinars and through these presentations or your EOY checklist, you've taken a look at some of these validations and some of these audit reports to make sure that your end of year tasks are being completed correctly. Okay, so let's look at the enrollment audits. All right, the first one we have here is enrollment loss report. Okay, you've likely seen this one before. So this one is going to be run in the current year, in your 25-26 school year, if that's your current year, and then it's going to show you students that don't have a future enrollment at the same school. Now, having said that, if you have rising sixth graders that are going from an elementary to a middle school, they're going to show up on this report, but it's going to give you a projected location and it'll give you a school number. So we want to make sure we look for those that don't have a projected location. The next one we can run is the North Carolina EOY enrollment verification. So this is going to be found under your reporting, just like state reports, only under data validation and your data validation reports. We'll take a look at that screen. We're going to find a lot of our reports in this area. So on your instance, under reporting, you'll see this data validation report area. And this is where we're going to find a lot of these validation reports that we're going to go over today. Okay. All right. So the enrollment verification report is just going to give you, once you've ended enrollments for your students, it'll show you any students that does not have an end date or that does not have an end status. This is nice to validate when you have ended your enrollments. All right, we'll look at some grading audits now. We have the transcript audit report. Okay, this is under grading and standards reports. So it's a regular report under grading and standards. This is going to compare your transcript data with the source grading data and list differences. So basically, it's going to show you any kind of difference between a grade that's been posted or a grade that you've posted to transcript. So the transcript grade is this, and the posted grade by the teacher is something different. You may see some that are fine. If you've done any manual entries of a grade that a teacher, like maybe it was a pass-fail class, you'll see those come up in there as well. The North Carolina transcript verification, we're going back to our data validation reports. Okay. This is going to give you your transcript grades that have a score of F, and the GPA value is nothing. Okay. It also gives you your something missing, any kind of your transcript grades that are missing a credit type. They're missing the state code, or they're missing the state course code name. All right. So down here, another report that's in our data validation reports list is your transcript rules. And I'll give you a little tip with these data validation reports. Any reports that you want to pull in there that doesn't have the NC, if you want to type the first 3 letters of that report, it'll take you right to it and you won't have to scroll so hard. All right, so this transcript rules. All right, this will give you your transcript grades that are posted in a student's transcript with no credits. All right, this could be possible to have for it's going to pull for all your schools and all your grades. So I would suggest run this as a CSV and filter for just your high school credit records, so you know that you can check on your anything that might have some GPA discrepancies, unweighted GPA value higher than the weighted, just any kind of mess that might be with the student's GPA posted transcript grade. We have some more grading audits that we can look at. The credit recovery transcript audit. Okay, this is again in our data validation report area. It's going to show you scores for and GPA for credit recovery grades. Now, this also is going to run for a lot of years. So you want to run this as a CSV, filter by your 2026, and you really want to be looking for any of your pass-fail grades for 2026, because we're not using those pass-fail grades for your credit recovery courses anymore. Right? Another grading audit is the GPA configuration verification report, also found in data validation reports. Okay, this is going to give you your transcript GPA weight discrepancies, grading setup GPA weight audits, misconfigured courses, which is a nice little handy one. This comes up in a couple other validation reports too. Invalid GPA weights on middle school for high school credit courses. So that's going to just list the course itself if it's been set up incorrectly. And then you'll also get transcript grades for middle school for high school credit courses that have a GPA weight on them. We know that that should not be. All right, so hopefully there's also some other ad hoc grading reports that you can find on the ad hoc community, and we'll talk about a little bit about those later. All right, now we're going to go into some discipline behavior audits. Under the behavior office in the reports menu is the behavior attendance report. Now this is going to give you, this one's a really neat report. It'll give you your behavior resolutions without a selected corresponding attendance code, which displays. Okay, so basically if you have a behavior resolution of suspension and you don't have a suspension code in the student's attendance, all right, it's going to pull that. That's what this audit does. If you have vice versa, the other way around, you have an attendance code of a 3 and no behavior resolution, it's going to pull that as well. You can also run this report as just a good. Okay, you have all of your attendance that's been created from a behavior resolution to display. And you can select all 3 of those options. Let's see. You can select all 3 of those options or just one at a time. And I would suggest as one of your end of year reports, perhaps using that behavior attendance audit with that 3rd option here. as a nice report to hang on to. But again, you can run it by all three. All right, another behavior audit is going to go back to those data validation reports, and it's called behavior rules. And this is just the rules that's been set by the behavior part of Infinite Campus. So it's going to give you current year events that don't have a resolution, and it may just be information for you to look at. It's also going to give you some prior year without resolutions, but we'd likely probably be looking more at the current year events without resolutions. All right, our last little validation audit report that we can look at is our graduation data verification validation. Right, say that 3 times fast. So this is also found in our data validation report area under reporting. So in this report, okay, if you run it by just a regular report, you'll get all of these options, and you can select on one of these to look at those students. It's going to give you students missing either a diploma date or diploma type. So likely, again, once you've completed your graduation screen on your seniors or on whoever is going to be graduating for you, you can run this, maybe a CSV again, so that you can filter through just those grade levels that need to be looked at. You can also look at students that don't have a 9th grade entry date, and that can be run for all of your high school students. This is a good one to run before you run that GDV final report. All right, next we're going to look at some local PSU final reports. Now, as always, we suggest that you follow your PSU's guidelines for specific end-of-year reports. We're just going to give you some options that you can look at that might be helpful for you, that are already canned reports. You don't have to create them. So, of course, we have our report cards. Okay, you can run these by batch. And what's nice with the report cards is you can run them by period. If you select the teacher option right here on this report, it'll give you a period option. So if you want to run it, let's say you're doing cumulative folders by, second period teachers by chance, you can run it by that so that those teachers will get a printout of these report cards to put in those folders. All right, another grades report is undergrades report. There's a couple of options here. We can run an all grades and scores, and this can be run by teacher, by students, or by course. If you want to keep these for future or just to have another in your folder for grades, this will give you for each teacher, you could run it and have all of their grades for the year that have been posted. Also might be a good idea to run the missing grades and scores. All right. And that might be looked at prior to even ending anything. This missing grades and scores, it might be information that's real, and you just didn't want to hang on to it. Then we have our class rank report. This report is going to calculate a student's class rank based on their cumulative GPA. As we know, our GPA is liable. We want to make sure all grades are in and done before we run this, okay, to take that snapshot. The transcript batch report. I did want to put this in here as we have a lot of people that know how to run transcripts for an individual student, but there is under grading and standards in your reports area, transcript batch report. Okay, and this is going to allow you to select a whole group of students by grade level. You can do an ad hoc filter. And again, with this one, you want to make sure you check that enrollment effective date within something that is effective, maybe your last day of school. You can run this, it defaults to a PDF, but a docx can be selected. And then you can run as many, if you want to run it by your seniors or 11th grade, run it that way. And you can run a bunch of transcripts at the same time. All right, we have our cumulative labels, and we usually put if applicable. So if you still do cumulative folders and you use these cumulative labels, this is an option here, and you do not have to update this every year, which is nice. Okay, this is in here. It uses your Avery 5163. I will tell you, I've heard from other PSUs that this report format is default to a PDF, and it may run and stick better and fit on your stickers with that docx option. All right, let's look at some attendance reports that you can keep. The day count report is very nice. This is going to report all your whole day and half day attendance. So this will give you your by student attendance days that they have for the whole year. Okay, you'll put your dates in here, and it runs by having at least. So if you put at least one, you're going to run all your students' attendance that have at least 1 day of absence. Now, again, on this, just like some of our other enrollment reports, we want to make sure we have daily approximations selected when we run this. The period count report is another attendance report. And you'll notice here we have a whole lot of options to choose from. It's run very similar to the day count report with our dates that we can put in there. We had to put at having at least. And if it were me, I would probably select these individually. So I have just the tardy. If you just have tardy selected, it will pull all your golden T's for all periods. So that might be nice to have if you're trying to judge, if a student's been tardy in a period multiple times. You can have that report stick. You could also run it the whole thing all at once. It's just might be hard to tell which one is which. But this period count report, play around with that one and get what you need out of it before we close out. Okay, the enrollment summary details report. I'm sure we've talked about this one in prior webinars too. This is going to be a really nice, not just validation report, but tell you all your enrollment summary details for the students in your school for this year. Okay, it is a detailed version of the enrollment summary. So it's not just going to tell you, it's going to give you every student by student. You'll be able to also, you can put on the settings how much information you want to include on that. All right, so this is really just a good student list report to have for, for any date during the school year. And as for the rest of your final end of year reports, again, we'll say follow your PSU guidelines. You may have a list that you're required to run and keep. And I want to encourage you to look at these Google ad hoc community reports. There's people that's PSU have created them for other PSUs, so you may have to adjust them a little bit to your school, but this is a great resource for you to use to go in and maybe find some other reports that might be helpful for you. And as I say that, as you have reports as well, please go in and share those. All right. All you have to do is go to that Google ad hoc and you can put your reports right into that. Okay, so now we were going to close it out here a little bit. You've noticed we did provide the NCSIS Knowledge Owl link that will take you to the end of year guidance for you to reference for end of year. Okay, I know it's a process and we're getting to the end. So this kind of gives you, there's a checklist there, all kinds of information for you to use. We also have a link to the professional learning tab in our Knowledge Owl that will give you all of the webinars EOY series that we're posting. And lastly, there's a link for you to ask any questions that you may have had through this webinar, through the other webinars, through your EOY. Is also a link to the answer sheet. So we will be answering those questions throughout this EOY process. And so please, kind of maybe bookmark that so that you can go back and there might be some questions you see in there that other PSUs have that might match yours. So really, really keep an eye on those two forms there. And that will conclude our EOY reporting webinar. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your year. Thank you.